disciples were invited to this wedding. Now, how many of you have been to a wedding recently? Yeah? What's the longest wedding you've been to? Anyone ever been to a Catholic wedding? Like, it's just kind of like, is this going to end, right? You know? Well, if you think that's bad, weddings in the Jewish tradition lasted for days. All right? Days. But it's not as bad as you think. It's not sitting in a sanctuary listening to someone drone on and on and on. Weddings in that time were like a big party that lasted for days. And so it was just huge. And they got together, it was the whole village would come together, and they would throw this big bash, and it was awesome. Well, in the midst of this, there's a lot of pressure on the hosts of the party, right? So we see that the host here has to pay special attention to organizing, make sure they got all the party favors and centerpieces and stuff, and proper beverages for a wedding. And usually it's kegger, you know? And so they're throwing this big bash, and Mary, the mother of Jesus, I don't know, she's either very meddlesome or she was part of the organizers, you know, like one of the helpers of the wedding. But she notices that they're running out of wine. That's not a good thing. Not a good thing. I mean, how would you think about living in a small town and yours was the wedding where the wine ran out. That'd be very embarrassing. And so Mary goes up to Jesus, her son, and says, hey, they're running out of wine. They're running out of wine. Now Jesus says a very curious thing. Imagine if you said this to your mom. Woman, why do you involve me? No, actually, we don't know the tone of voice that he used. But it translates, woman, why do you involve me? Or what does this have to do with me? And we think that's shocking, but actually, woman kind of wasn't like the derogatory term that we would think if you would call it woman. You know, it was more like a little bit more respectful than we think. But then he says, "Why do you involve me? My hour has not yet come." And Mary looks at him, turns to the servants, and says, "Do whatever he says to do." So obviously, she didn't even really care what he said. Do what he says to do. And Jesus was like, whatever. He says, all right, there are, see the ceremonial jars over there filled with water? Now I need to pause here and explain what this is. Back in the Jewish times, in the New Testament times, they had some ceremonies. Now this isn't in the Bible, but it was added on by the religious leaders. They were very into ceremonial washing. How many of you guys get in trouble if you don't wash your hands before you come to dinner? None of it. That's well, it's disgusting. No. I mean, think about it. I mean, maybe we're a bit more aware of it now in swine flu days, but back then. All right, let's talk about this story. By the way, that wasn't actually the wedding cake. Yeah. So, just a couple of notes about the story, you guys. The wedding cake. Imagine those huge jars of wine. They estimated those jars could have held between 20 and 30 gallons each. And so you're talking about probably 2,000 cups of wine that they could get out of that. And actually, probably more, because they probably would water it down a little bit after that. So we're talking about this amazing thing, and it's better than the wine that they started with, all right? So, like I said, this is the first sign. And a sign we need to read. We need to take in, we need to process. So, instead of just, we read some miracle accounts before, but this is different. It's something that we're supposed to get something out of. We're supposed to read into it. So, what does this sign reveal to us? What do we read into this sign about Jesus? We're going to get into small groups. And we're going to give you a chance to dig into it a little bit and maybe decipher and just kind of investigate. It's almost like a mystery, really, to figure out some symbolism. There's all sorts of kooky stuff. What was the tool that you used in this miracle?
Literary device?
What?
What literary device is that?
What? No, what, what does he use in this miracle? I mean, like what physical object?
Water.
Water. And what was the water in?
No. Jars. Earthenware, stoneware, jar.
So what do you think the significance of these stone water jars and how does
For ritual washing and cleaning.
okay.
So that and the water both symbolize like purity and cleanliness,
Okay, according to what?
according to the Jewish tradition.
So he's kind of like taking the tradition and
Yeah,
going. That's what I was thinking of, is that he's kind of, just like a lot of other things, he's coming and going against the tradition that
Turning
people
it
have set
into
up.
wine.
No, and
More
correcting and using it
Jesus
for his
Christ.
purpose.
Absolutely. Let's build on this a little bit. In the Jewish tradition, numbers, they're into numerology, is that it? In other words, like you hear numbers a lot in the Bible, like 40 days and 40 nights, you know. A lot of things are 40 days and 40 nights. Usually what that means is a long time, or 40 years. It's a long time. Or 12 tribes, 12 disciples, 7. And actually, in the Jewish tradition, 7 not only is it Joe Mauer number, but 7 is the perfect number, right? How many jars are there?
6.
6.
Is there any significance to that?
Hexagon.
It was because 6 maybe implying that there was still more work to do, and the day of rest, the final day, is yet ahead.
Okay. I mean, I think you're on the right track there. I mean, 6 isn't what?
6 isn't 7.
It's not 7, right?
7 means complete.
So it's the number 6 is
Don't the logic
significant.
know?
I mean, you could have just said there was some stone jars over there, but there were 6 of them, meaning that these jars, which represent
Purity and cleanness.
purity and
Their
cleanliness according to the
rituals.
Jewish tradition,
Jewish tradition.
wasn't perfect.
Was not
It
perfect.
wasn't complete. So I mean, that's kind of interesting. So if the 6 jars represent an imperfect Jewish tradition, what is the significance in what Jesus does with them?
He takes them and uses them for his own purpose.
Okay.
Turns the filthy, unclean, watered down rituals, turns into a wine.
Okay. And
Perfect wine.
so what? Yeah. I mean, the result is not only does he use them, but the result is
Something perfect.
it's perfect. What else?
Far better
I
than
mean, what else? How else could you describe this?
Alcoholic.
He starts a big pot. Yeah. I mean,
Jesus
and,
likes kingers.
and how much? Well, seriously, like I mean, there's a lot of Christians out there that really look down on alcohol, like being one of them. This is a tough scripture for them because not only does Jesus drink wine, he brings a lot of it, and it's the best stuff. You know, it's like okay.
Well, maybe it's more than to prove a point than Jesus likes wine. So.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's all the way, but I know, sorry. But all right, so he makes wine. It's amazing wine, and what? There's a lot of it, right? I mean, there's tons of it.
Overflowing. He fills it to the brim.
Likely more than maybe they were even able to use.
Representing God's love.
So, well, let's look at that. I mean, so Jesus takes imperfect and brings an abundant and amazing new thing out of it. What do you think this sign then reveals us about Jesus? Yeah, I mean, what does this sign, Jesus taking an imperfect system, an old thing, and making it new, and bringing new, perfect and abundant, perfect and abundant new thing out of it? I mean, what does this tell us about Jesus? What does this reveal to us about Jesus? How do we read this sign for us today?
He will take the things that are imperfect